Everyone, how are you? Great energy in the room? Yep. Fantastic. You're a lively bunch. Just turn to the person beside you and say, "You're awesome." Hang on. Good. And secondly, now say, "And you're so lucky to be sitting next to me." Excellent, thank you. Well done. So, building the development revolution. It's a pretty interesting topic and perhaps a provocative topic, and it builds nicely on some of Blythe's discussion around engagement. You know, if we've got 60% of people who are just kind of sitting on the fence, who just turn up to work and it's a bit of a yawn, and we've got about 10% or a little bit more who are actively disengaged, that's not a great place. So my proposition is that we fundamentally need to shift how we manage and lead people. If that's how people are actually engaged in our organisation or not engaged, then there's something fundamentally not working very well. Now, I'm a little biased here, but I think TakeON is at the frontier of this revolution. I think we're so far ahead of a lot of other leadership and management development programs that it's not funny. So we start off on a really good base. So, presently, globally, I think we're living in what I'm calling the management or the industrial age. We've pretty much rehashed the same stuff that we've been talking about for about 100 years now. Would you agree? There's not a whole lot of new stuff out there? Kind of feels pretty much the same? Yep, no? Yep. A lot of training programs aren't that great. So I've seen training programs right around the world, management, leadership development, and often what happens is that we have a really good time, we get the big sugar hit, and then we come back to work, and what happens? Nothing. That's right. We've got 3,000 emails, we've got people knocking on our door or banging on our desk, or an open floor plan, we've got people kind of queuing up wanting to speak to us, and we just get swamped by the everyday demands and challenges of our role. So what happens in that chaos is we revert back to what we know best. We use authority too much in organisations rather than influence. Would you agree? Yeah. Too much authority, just do it this way. So we use a lot of control rather than empowering people. We call anybody who has any authority in an organisation a leader. What a load of nonsense. How many people know people in authority but fail to lead? Just put your hand up. Yeah. We know people who are very senior and actually fail to make progress on the most important things, the things that matter. We should stop calling anyone with authority a leader. Leadership is a verb. Yeah, it's a doing word. It's not a position or a role. So that's a kind of fundamental shift. And also, I think what we need to kind of talk about is how much we actually see us as part of the problem. How many people think they're an above average driver? Just put your hand up. Yeah. What percentage do you think put their hand up then? Nearly everyone. That's impossible. It's actually about 80% of people think they're an above average driver. How does that work? We're overly optimistic about our own abilities, overly optimistic about our capabilities as managers and leaders. And you may have seen this firsthand in your own organisations. Yes? Yep, absolutely. In fact, I proved this in a really simple way with a group of about 80 leaders 2 weeks ago. And I had the polling technology kind of happening, and I said, rate yourself on your own management and leadership capability. They rated themselves an average 4 out of 5, so 5 being excellent. And then I said, now rate the group that you're sitting in, this group, the senior management team, plus the level below and the level below. Guess what the scores were? 2.5. So in other words, if I'm sitting at this table, I'm kind of pointing over to that guy saying, gee, I hope he's listening because he really needs it. I'm okay though. Yeah. So when we're talking about management and leadership, we actually all need to realise that actually fundamentally we probably need to be doing different things in organisations. We need to kind of think about what we're doing, and we need to think about how we're developing our people and developing managers and leaders. Because if management and leadership has a long way to go, then we actually need to develop people in a different way as well. So rather than driving this, because this is kind of how we feel, right, in organisations, we think we're doing okay. Yep. Whereas in fact, this is really the kind of car we're driving. This is really where we are in terms of management and leadership. We've got a long way to go, and as I said, I think TakeON is, you know, at the forefront of that. So we're not so smug now in this kind of little car. As I said before, most training doesn't work. Why? Because it's often rehashed principles, rehashed models which aren't relevant to the learner. We don't actually do really good needs analysis. We actually don't know if we go through this program, is this going to actually meet our development need? How many people have been to a training program, you felt fantastic, you've pumped the air, whew, got the big sugar hit? Yep. Has everyone experienced that? Yep. Then you go back to work and the folder goes where? On the shelf, or if you're a short person, you might actually sit on it, you know, put it to some good use. We actually don't use it much, so we don't kind of integrate it. So even if the training program is fantastic, the problem is we don't apply the learning necessarily. So one of the fundamental challenges is not so much about the quality of the training, but when we come back to work, how do we apply it? How do we do something differently? That's one of the big challenges for us in organisations. So you would have all seen this model, I presume? Yep. What's it called? Just yell out. 70-20-10. 70-20. Thanks, Kate. That was good. You're the loudest voice then. I think you're about the only voice. So at the back, what's it called? 70-20-10. The source of this model is a little bit, you know, it's kind of undecided. Some people think it was from the Centre for Creative Leadership. Other people say Lominger. I'm not sure. I've read a whole lot of stuff and I can't actually pinpoint the source exactly. But what I do know is that it's just a nice way to think about how we manage, how we develop people. I'm not sure it's based on rigorous research as such, but intuitively it kind of feels pretty good. That if we're really, in terms of how we lead, manage and grow, we're looking at about 10% is courses and programs. Yep. About 20% is that we actually, we develop through others. And then finally about 70% is through experience, so on the job. Actually what we do. When we do go back and put the folder on the bench or on the shelf. But really, it's a worthy goal, but one that is still elusive to us. Most of the focus, as you're probably aware, is in this 10%, so courses and programs, and we don't necessarily do the 20% or the 70% very well. So it remains a big challenge for us. So let's have a look at some of the alternatives to standard courses, even if we use blended learning. So where we have, you know, more traditional coursework, where we have online work, the 70 and the 20 still remains pretty much untouched. So TakeON, setting the standard. This is not a sales pitch, by the way. I'm preaching to the converted, I know that. So this is really looking at what are the key elements of TakeON that we're already doing really well, that are built into the program. So the program structure itself, in terms of being short, sharp, focused interventions, rather than kind of longer programs, maybe once a year or once every 2 years, really helps. The theme design and the way they're structured. As you know, you can just select themes that are already built, but you can customize it based on the needs of the business. And the themes are designed in such a way, for me, which create great insight, and then insight to action. So it's reflection, action. How do we translate that back to the workplace? It's built into the program. It's kind of a system for having conversations to drive innovation. It's a system for having conversations to drive culture change and the things that matter most to us in organisations. The partnering approach and this model, how many have seen this? I presume a lot? Some? One. Thank you over there. So this model really is just a simple way of showing a core philosophy of TakeON. It's not about being expert or consultant driven. It's actually about, as an organisation, how do you take ownership of it? So if we're really partnering well, that we would provide leadership and coaching and support as you slowly take control or empowerment of the program. Always there in the background, supporting you. But I've seen the transformation that this principle alone has enabled organisations to take, and in itself is quite powerful. How many people have experienced this, really feeling like you own this program more than perhaps any other training program you may have been involved in before? Yeah, just raise your hand. Yeah, it's pretty telling. And then the internet, of course. Social media is becoming, a really fantastic way to learn, and the internet as a social collaborative network platform is a really great way to support leadership and learning. And then peer-led learning. For me, it's nothing kind of makes the heart sing more than seeing people who at 1 minute or at one theme are sitting there as participants, and then the next theme they're up co-leading. The best way to learn is to teach. And whilst I've seen lots of trepidation and nervousness about, getting up and actually teaching, the feeling of empowerment and the joy that people get from actually standing up and just having a conversation, really just a real conversation. And for me, that's the power of TakeON, where it's not this one-off kind of, wonderful experience and then we don't know how to translate it. If we're actually learning and teaching together and growing together, it's a much more powerful process. So what are some strategies around the 70%? We can apply new learning in real situations, using feedback. So as we're actually doing things, we're getting feedback along the way. So it's not, I was once working with a top 200 of a large law firm, international law firm, and one of the partners was complaining to me that he couldn't shift the behaviours of one of his charges, so as a senior associate. And he said, I've had the conversations and I just can't make any difference in their development. I said, that's interesting. When did you have the conversation? When do you think he said? 2 years ago. A year ago, not quite 2 years. Yeah, he said, last performance review. So 12 months ago, one conversation, and he expected significant change. It's just not going to happen. So how do we provide ongoing feedback in the moment? Increased span of control, increased decision making, leading change. We know how hard change is to lead. We can bring in a whole lot of different factors when we're leading change. Around the 20%, some of these things you'll be doing, or many of these things you'll be doing already. For me, the bottom three really is where TakeON really picks up quite a lot. So in terms of networks, learning together, action learning, and also, as I was just saying, facilitating group sessions. How many people, if you to give yourself a rating around your own organisation and doing the 70, the 20, 70 and the 20, just stand up if you're a 10 out of 10. So no one's perfect in the room, okay? We've all got space to grow. What about 9, 8? No one's game to stand up. Whew, who's going to be the first? 7, 6. Oh, thank you, Paul. Well done. Excellent. 5. This is the smart side of the room. What's going on? 4. 3. Wow. 2. 1. Okay, thank you. Have a seat. So even though this model has been around for a long time, we've still got a way to go in terms of supporting learners coming back from any kind of program, whether it be TakeON or some other developmental intervention. The support structure to actually help people to learn on the job is really critical. So we do need more though. The 70-20-10 model isn't even enough. We know some of the research from the Centre for Creative Leadership that if we're actually going to help people transform and be the managers and leaders we deserve and need in modern organisations today, we actually need to do a whole lot more. This is a really interesting piece of research. So what they found was, and there's something like 100 learning and development leaders, a survey of 10,000 learners over 200 training programs in a whole range of different countries. And they looked at what are the most successful programs in terms of being able to get people to translate and transfer the learning back into their organisational role. And what were the things they did? So the top 20% of the programs got about a 50% increase in performance. The bottom 20% got a 13% increase in performance. So what did they do? None of these will be a surprise to you, particularly. So they did a really good needs analysis. So what is the gap between now where we are in our vision? What is the gap in terms of our leadership capability? Importantly though, they actually expanded the needs analysis to say, what are the barriers to people being able to come back into their role and translate that into every day? That's not usually done, right? Would you agree? Yeah. What are the barriers? Is it about their manager? Is it about systems or structures that are not in alignment with the leadership behaviours we're expecting them to demonstrate? Build learner motivation. So not just get the fist pump coming out of the training program, but actually get them motivated about applying it in the real world every day. Not once a month or 6 months, but every day, how to actually apply this. And then finally, and I'm sure this one really won't surprise you, is engage the managers, the one-ups. Yeah, because we know the relationship that we have with one-up managers is really important. And learners' integration can actually fail or succeed based on managers' support. So I guess in summary, we've talked just briefly about my revolution, if you like, or the revolution I'm talking about is happening in part. And I'm also calling on us, who are at the forefront of development, to actually start to change things and do things differently. A lot of training programs out there are just money down the drain. The return on investment just isn't there. And I reckon as a community, as a society, we should be striving to build strong organisations, and we can only do that by building strong leaders. Thank you very much.